Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a quick intro discussion on the game Old School Tactical from Flying Pig Games. It's a Mark Walker game and a Shane Logan design. I would put this behind the tactical games that I've played as far as complexity goes. Uh, Advanced Squad Leader being the most complex, and then Lock and Load Tactical probably. I'll put this even behind that. So third in as far as complexity goes. It's a very enjoyable game. It's fairly new to me. I backed their most recent Kickstarter and received it a few weeks ago. Played a few scenarios from it, and I enjoy the game. It's not really a solo game. It is designed for two players. I have been using the Lock and Load Tactical Solo deck. Uh, Not all the time, but when I see that there's some significant choices to be made, I may just pull a card and see what the solo deck does. But it's because of the impulse system that it uses, and it's quite easy to play two-handed schizo mode, however you want to call it, just basically playing against yourself. Um, the luxury in that is that you always win. The downside is that you always lose also. So I usually choose a side, and then, like I say, if I need to if there's a lot of decisions that can be made, then I'll pull a card and may use it. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it through this playthrough or not, but I probably will. It just makes it, to me, more enjoyable, because sometimes the enemy does things that I wouldn't do, but not necessarily a blatantly, obviously stupid move, but just something different. The rule book is, like I said, it's about 22 pages, so uses a little bit different design and how it's laid out. It's a quality print, quality paper. Not a lot of pictures in it. There's some. Excuse me. We'll start looking here at some of the counters, the unit counters that are included. If your infantry counter there on the left-hand side, you see everything is right there on the counter for you: the firepower, the range, the defense, the movement, and then if they're damaged, it flips over to the reduced side. The upper right-hand corner there is a crude weapon. So in this case, a PaK-40 can also apply to other anti-tank guns or anything that would require a crew to man it. Those will usually have a no move / fire, as you see in the bottom left there, the asterisk, meaning that if they do move, they can't fire in that impulse. The AFV counter has a lot of stuff on it. But again, all the information that you're going to need to do this. Fairly easy. The crude and the weapons and the AFV markers, you notice the unit facing there in the corner. This one uses a little different system, whereas most of the tactical games I've played, that facing is usually facing a hex spine, and in this one it actually faces the middle of the hex, the direction you're going. Let's see, just to pull up, show you real quick here, like this tank. This is how you face it, instead of let's see, maybe zoom in there just a bit more and you can see it a little better. So instead of this way, where most tactical games go, they actually face this way, and then this is your covered arc, and this is your front flank, front facing. This is your flank facing. So that's kind of how that works. So the scenario we've picked out here is called a hedgerow clash. July of '44. You can see the, hopefully you can see, it's not incredibly great, but I can read it at least on my screen. So you see the German forces and American forces. The Germans do have a tank, possibility of a tank coming in. Now this game does use, it counts down from your turn. So you actually start at turn 7 and count down to 1, and then you roll the dice at 1 after you finish turn 1. You roll the dice. Each person rolls the dice. If it's 7 or greater, then you actually go to turn 0. If not, then it's over. Uh, so it could be 7 turns. It could be actually 8. That's which is unusual. Like I say, most games you count up on your turn sequence. This one counts down, so that's a little different. So basically, in this scenario, the Americans are coming in here at the bottom. As you can see, some units kind of off map there, and these are currently under German control. Those control markers, and that's the objective, is to try to capture those guys. Those hexes. You get, I believe, what does it say, 3 points for each one? Yes, 3 victory points each at game end. In this game, you also keep track of, in not all scenarios, but at least in this scenario, you also keep track of enemy casualty points. And so at the end of the game, the person with the most victory points plus casualty points is declared the winner. So the U.S. could still win without capturing all these if they eliminate more Germans than well, 12 points worth more Germans probably, if they don't get any of those control points. The and full infantry is worth 2. Reduced infantry is worth 1. Pretty much everything else is worth just 1. A crew is worth 1. A tank is worth 1. A tank and a crew is worth 2 if they're both destroyed. So it takes you gain them a little bit at a time. So it doesn't happen right off the bat. This game does use combat tables. Basically, you calculate your firepower and the opponent's defense, and you'll get either a plus or a minus or an even. In other words, if a 4 firepower unit is firing at a 4 firepower defense, that would be a 0, and you'd roll 2 6-sided dice, and you would check where it came across. So you rolled an 8, you go across to the 0 column and say B. That means broken. So this game calls it a gut check instead of a morale check. And the scenario, in this scenario, both sides have a 7 as the gut check. So you have to roll less than or equal to your gut check to pass it. So shaken, S is a shaken. So that's that's another gut check, and you can become shaken. C is casualty. That's a casualty reduction. So you'd flip your unit over to the infantry unit over to its reduced side. A casualty will eliminate a single person counter, a leader or a sniper, something like that. X is obviously eliminated. That's an outright kill. The slashes, the CB, the CS, that is a casualty and a broken. So if you're full strength, you would reduce it to half strength, and then you would take a gut check on that. And then you see some modifiers there for firepower modifiers or die roll modifiers. The leader casualty roll, if you have if the leader is stacked with the unit, then you have to take the leader casualty roll. Depending on the severity of the unit's damage. If it just has some type of gut check, then the leader would have to also pass that same gut check. If it's a casualty, you roll the die or one die. If it's a 1, then the leader's also destroyed. If the unit is completely destroyed, then it's a 1 to 3. Then the leader would be destroyed. So the stacking limit is basically 2 units and a leader, and then support weapons if they have them. So that's kind of how it goes. There's also a vehicle combat table, and you have to roll a to hit, and then you would go to this table, and those, like the AFV, you have these different kind of cards here. Let's see if we can get that up there. We can see it. Is it going to focus? Not too good, is it? There's a little better. So anyway, you see the different ranges. You have a hit number, to hit number, and then it'll tell you what the AFP firepower is at that range. So obviously, the further you are away, the higher the hit number goes, and the less the firepower damage. So that's kind of how that works. So each unit has these cards. Look, there's a card for leaders. There's a card for the rifle squad, engineer squad. So each unit has and these come in kind of handy, especially with the vehicles. I mean, you have to have them for the vehicles, the AFVs and things, to know what the hit number is and what the AP firepower is for each one. So I think that there's also a terrain chart that tells you what the movement cost is for your foot, wheeled, or tracked vehicles for each of the types of terrain. Some of the terrain will require a bog check, and then also you have a defense rating for different things, like in brush. If infantry's in the brush, and they get a +1 added to their defense. Woods is a +2 and such. The line of sight brush would degrade it. You can only have a maximum of 2 hexes of degrading terrain. Or when you hit the 3rd hex, it becomes blocked. So 2 hexes is all you can have of degrading terrain, and then other terrain just outright blocks your line of sight. So line of sight is not terribly difficult in this game. It's fairly straightforward, I think. So it's just not that difficult. The game itself, I'm not going to call it simple, but it's a good quality tactical World War II tactical combat game, and like I said, certainly not as difficult as the hundreds of pages for Advanced Squad Leader. And I don't know, Lock and Load Tactical, I think maybe is upwards of 50 to 60 pages, depending on what rule book you've got now. I think they're up to 5.1 in theirs. The rules, like I say, are laid out. There's a table of contents up front. There's an index in the back, so you can find things pretty quickly. It's laid out basically in section headings, and then the things that go under that heading, like vehicles. It talks about the counter, and then there's 20 points on the vehicles is what they do. Foxholes has 4, so each one has just different things on it. The you see the turn sequence there on this one. It's fairly lengthy turn sequence, but a lot of those aren't coming into play every time. Like I said, this game uses an impulse system. Basically, at the in the turn sequence, you see after you've done your reinforcements, you can attach leaders and weapons. Those that are in the same unit, they can swap weapons, or the leader can, if there's say 2 infantry units in there, it can swap from one to the other who it wants to be attached to, that kind of thing. Smoke counters, you change from 2 to 1, and then or 1 to 2, and then take the 2s off. So free rally and bog rolls, those are, like I say, before you even start anything, each turn you're allowed to rally any of the troops that are on the board. You can also rally during a turn. It costs you a point to do that, an impulse point. You take your initiative rolls. Both sides roll 2 dice, and the highest one has the initiative for that. You re-roll ties, so that's who would go first if they so choose. Then you have impulse rolls. Impulse rolls, that's variable. As you see in this scenario we're playing, the Germans have an impulse of 2d6. The Americans have an impulse of 2d6 plus 4. So they could get more, could get less. And basically, it costs an impulse to move a unit, to fire a unit. If you have a stack, let's say 2 units that are with the leader has to be present to activate more than one unit. So if you had, say you want to do a combined fire, you can have 2 units in the same hex or 2 units in adjacent hexes with a leader attached to one of them. They can combine their fire. Those things cost 2 impulse points. So to move a stack with a leader and 2 units would cost 2. To fire a stack with a leader and 2 units would cost 2. The rest of them pretty much 1. Everything costs 1 unit to do things. That takes us to the impulse roll. Play turn that's just it. You just play the turn out, and if you have if you have the initiative and you have more impulse points than your opponent, then you either have to move or you have to burn an impulse point to not move or to not do anything. If you have equal to or less than your opponent, you can choose to pass. Equal to or less than impulse points, you can choose to pass. I think that's right. It's the equal to, I'm not positive. It may be equal to or greater than I think that's what it is, actually. If you have equal to or greater impulse points than your opponent, then you have to pay 1 to pass. So you just alternate. You activate 1 unit at a time, or that stack for paying 2 impulse points, and then it switches to the other team. The other side gets to activate 1 of theirs, and you can move, you can fire, and you'll have counters to keep track of. Let's say we move this stack up to here. We would then mark them as moved, and you can only make 1 of those in a turn. You can only make 1 move in a turn. You can fire twice. You can do some other things more than once, but move you can only do once. So let's say they moved up here, and then the Germans did something, and then the U.S. turns around and they want to fire. Let's say this has the mortar. Say they want to fire the mortar up here. So they take that shot. Then they are marked as used. That means they're done. They can't do anything after that. So these counters are in play quite a bit. There's other tokens that you're going to use. You have the shaken tokens, the broken tokens, melee tokens, smoke tokens. So those are other things that you may place over a unit or just on a hex, depending on what the result is, what's happening. Let's see. Then you'd have a melee phase after everybody's expended all of their impulse points. Then you have any melee of you enter melee through what's called the assault move. Basically, you have to be one hex away, and you just move in and assault the unit. So it's not like advanced squad leader. You could actually move from more than one hex away and move into assault. In this one, since you can only move once during a turn, that would be it. You'd make an assault move. So that's a little bit different than this one. But so you conduct your melee, then you start removing the markers, your moved and fired and used markers. Take all those away. Score your victory points. Each turn there may be victory points. This scenario is not, but some scenarios are. If you hold an objective, you get one victory point at the end of the turn. That type of thing each turn. So, and if it's your end of the turn, if the turn counter's on 1, then you roll the dice and see if you have an extended play. If not, then that's the end of the game. Then you calculate your victory points and see who wins. We'll get more into the gameplay as we start actually playing the game. I've already chosen the scenario. I've already done the setup. Pretty much have everything set up. So the next video we will go off with turn 7 and count down from there. So I do hope you join me for the playthrough of this, and I hope you enjoy it. Please give me any feedback. Let me know, especially let me know if I make mistakes. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope to see you soon. Thanks.